Welcome back to Under Oath, where sales takes a stand. If you are new here, every episode we put sales strategies, tactics, and ideas to the stand. We bring our ideas and expertise from all of our backgrounds in sales leadership, enablement, and really decades of sales experience to determine the truth. What does it actually take to grow and scale a world-class sales team? Before we get started, let's welcome back our defense. Zach Ramey, head of revenue at Rankings.io. Myself, Scott Knutson, Director of Revenue Operations at Rankings. Our ringer, Cole Castleberry, Head of Sales at Rankings. And today we have a special guest, More Assouline, founder of a sales training company. Gentlemen, welcome. More, we're going to put you on the stand today and cross-examine you. Anything we want to bring to the bench before we get started?
I have one today for everyone. For those that are watching, talk through a little visuals here. If you can see, everyone has a pretty clean background. Would love a poll. Does having a better background make you more impactful on a Zoom call?
Ooh, that's a good question. In my experience, I get a lot of comments on my Zoom background. Like usually every vendor's like, I love that background. I feel like it's like a good icebreaker, you know?
It's not an argument. It's a yes.
Yes, you just
It's
feel
just-
better because of background?
Yeah, 100%. Just go ahead and chalk it up.
Yeah, it's like I love steak, but if you put a steak on a paper plate, I'll never eat it. Right? Aesthetics matter.
Aesthetics matter. Okay. With that, court is now in session. All right, gentlemen, today's charge. If you remember last week, we talked about hiring, how to hire. Today is kind of the next evolution of that, or the progression of that, which is promotions. How do we promote? What's the best way to promote? What are some of the mistakes that people make with promotions, or things that they should be aware of as they're making promotions? Obviously, all of us have been promoted, have been the ones to decide who to promote and who not to promote. So we're going to tap into our collective wisdom here. So for today's opening statements, we're going to talk about that. What's something that each of us have learned in our careers about promotions, whether that's being promoted or being the one promoting? Zach, we'll start with you. What's something you've learned about promotions?
Something that I've learned over, I guess, 12 years is I think people say it all the time, but you do the job before you get the job. I feel that that is something that got to learn early on in my career. I was told by mentors, somebody early on that I used to be super close to at work was a mentor of mine named Steve Munch. And he told me from day one, I would never need to come ask for the job. He would see me doing the job and I would get the promotion. They would find me. And I kind of really took that to heart when I was 24. I was like, you know what? All the things that I see the people in front of me doing, I'm going to start doing as many of those things that I can in this role. I'm going to mentor the people around me. I'm going to try to get ahead. To this day, I am proud to say I've never went and asked for a promotion. I've always been found. I've always felt like I've done the job before I got the job. And I've took that mentality and I've tried to teach that to the people around me that I hire or work beside of.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing for if you want a promotion, right? What you have to kind of put at stake is I have to be able to do my job, but then also show that I can take on even more responsibility as a way to kind of do both, right? Like you don't want to sacrifice the job you're doing. If you want the promotion, you essentially have to say, hey, I'm going to work a little bit harder than everybody else and start doing these extra things, whether that's one-on-one coaching or providing assets or staying late, whatever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just putting yourself in this position where you're essentially just working harder than everybody. I think that, to your point, Zach, tees you up.
Something that has really aggravated me over my career is people that say, I'm not going to do anything that I don't get paid for. And I think that's a ridiculous statement because nobody goes and gets paid learning athletics, right? You don't get paid to work out. You don't get paid to now you get paid to go to college in a lot of situations. But like to win championships and things like that, the work is put in and then the money comes after, right after you become great at that thing. I just think it's crazy to think that you're going to get paid and not have done the job yet and not be great at it. So I think that people make more money over time by not worrying about if it's what I'm getting paid for today. It's, am I learning a skill and getting better at something that's going to further my career? Then the money will come.
Yeah. I think that's a great sports analogy where, hey, if you want to get, make it onto the team, what does your nutrition look like? What kind of exercise you're doing? You're not getting paid to do any of that. In some cases, you're paying to do a lot of stuff. At the end of the day, it's investing in all these other things that get you the job, right? I think you're spot on there, Zach. Cole, what about you? What's something you've learned in your position?
Yeah, I think promotions are always sought after, right? But I think a lot of times people always just think about the next step without actually thinking about what they want or what they're good at. A lot of people in the sales world I'm good at sales, I can teach sales, I can lead sales. Being great at sales and leading sales are completely different skill sets. So I think a lot of times when you're thinking about promotions, it's not always leadership or management. Promotions can be something that is handling more, getting more responsibility, earning more money. It doesn't always have to be a title change when it comes to promotions. It can be something that best suits your capabilities, specifically in the sales world.
Yeah, I like this idea of sometimes you can feel like the only way I can get promoted is if I get that manager title, if I get that senior title or whatever. And of course, that's the goal. But a promotion in many ways is how are you viewed? If you're viewed as just an individual contributor and that's it, as opposed to being viewed as a leader on the team, right? That's a subconscious change, right? And you can earn that. And yeah, you're not going to get a pay bump, but what goes into winning the hearts and minds of your colleagues and the people who are the ones giving out those promotions? And you should be kind of thinking about it like, okay, I gotta win that promotion first. You know, what's my, how do people see me? And then, so I've gotten that promotion. People see me as a leader. They see me as a winner. They see me as somebody who hits their quota. Great. Now I can, that gives me a lot more leverage to go and get the title promotion.
I would actually argue that you do get a pay bump, right? We were talking before this call about investing in an office, right? And the way that mindset changes about being in a space versus at home. I think same thing when it comes to promotions or that leadership. Just because you got a title raise or whatever it is, that mindset translates into more for you, equating in more money. So it's not always about a salary bump or a title bump. It can be about just more responsibility or other areas as well.
Love it. More, I want to get to your opening statement. But before I do that, I want to maybe properly introduce you for the Under Oath, the huge fandom that we've accumulated in 3 episodes. Tell everybody kind of a little bit about your backstory, what you currently do,
Sure.
What's your role in this big, crazy sales world?
Yeah. So what I do now is I have a sales training company. I train and coach sales companies and individual contributors. But prior to that, I was a VP of sales a handful of times for early stage startups. First employee joined in when they were doing 0 AR and they got acquired and, doing millions of AR when I left. Prior to that, I actually was a copywriter and then a marketing manager. So I was marketing, copywriting was my first love. Obviously, that is very transferable in sales because a lot of the buying and human psychology. Right out of college, I got my first job, which was a sales job. I think it was cold calling. And I quit on the first day because I was just scared of sales. I just got the job because that's what you need to do after you graduate college. I quit sales and I didn't do any sales job for 3 years. That's why I went into marketing. And then I found myself in sales. And so funny, I went from quitting sales because of the fear to running my own sales company and not having any fear. So yeah, now I help companies and people get sales or improve whatever they're doing.
Yeah, my brother, he has a big belief in that of like, what you're good at and the things you're afraid of. If you can face those fears and do the thing that you don't want to do, you're going to bring in all that expertise on the other side that you're already great naturally at. And you're going to be even better because all the other people who are great at that are not usually great at the stuff you're good at. And so all that other experience, if you can just get over that hump of that fear, like you can be dynamic in that space. So I love that. So more, obviously you've been around the block, you've been connected to lots of different sales teams in various capacities. What's something you've learned when it comes to either advising kind of management teams on promotions or something you've seen in your personal career with promotions? Like what's something that's stood out in your mind?
Yeah, so I mean, Zach and Cole actually answered the 2 questions that I had in mind, but then it made me think about a third thing. So I definitely agree. I remember when I was an individual contributor at a company called Practice Panther, it was just me and the 2 co-founders. We didn't have a CS team. We didn't have an accounting team. We didn't have all these things. So when the time came for someone to handle it, I didn't ask permission. I just did it. And then the founder saw that I was doing it and I took initiative and then they promoted me to VP of sales. So I think do the work before you get the job. 2, it's very different. If you're in sales, if you're an individual contributor, and you want to be promoted to a sales leader, it's not even a sales job at that point. There's no quota, but you don't have to master sales skills. You have to master leadership skills, and you have to recruit. You have to be a better recruiter. And so I think a lot of top performing reps, their goal is to go into leadership thinking that their sales skills is transferable to leadership, but it's not. Well, many times it's not. I think a big two big things, or I'll merge it into one, and I'll quote Spider-Man's Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. I used to think that because I was a VP of sales, I can go on vacation for however long I want, and I can stay home from work. The complete opposite. You actually have more responsibility and you're more on call. And I used to think, but because I was a VP in the C-suite or whatever it was, that I was the boss, I was the man. But that type of thinking leads to very boss. There's a picture, if you've ever seen it, what a boss looks like. It's the pharaoh in the back, whacking the whip, cracking the whip, and then the leader is the person in the front. The real mind shift that I had when I was a VP of sales was I actually work for my sales people. They don't work for me. Without me, they'll still be around. Without them, I won't have a job. So I think that is the biggest shift. And that requires people to swallow ego. And that sometimes means you get a lower comp than your salespeople. So I don't think people know what it means to truly be promoted. I think they get excited by the title and the conversations they can have in parties, but they don't actually, it's a lot more grit, a lot more responsibility, a lot more sacrifice.
Zach, you haven't experienced any of that recently, I don't think.
I don't know anything about what we're saying, so I'm very intrigued.
Me and Zach will often on our one-on-ones, he'll be like, man, like we're growing so fast. I had no idea what was involved, stepping into this bigger, because he leads our kind of revenue org. And yeah, I'm sure, Zach, you could speak to it, but just like so much more than meets the eye. You're just juggling so many balls, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a juggling act for sure. Luckily, I do know how to actually juggle, so that helps somewhat. But I think to what Moore said, he couldn't hit it more spot on. You are always on. Like it's a 24/7 thing. At the end of the day, if something makes it to you, more than likely it is a 5 o'clock fire alarm, right? Like it does need handled right then. I like to travel and go places and phone never goes off, unfortunately, right? Like, cause you're the person that has to help do that. And like in our case, if I can't do it, it goes to our CEO, right? And I don't want that bypassing me. I want to ensure that I get it accomplished and I do my job at a high level. 100% correct that I don't think people truly know what comes along with the promotions. A lot of times they might see the pay bump. In some cases, it's not a pay bump, or they just see the title. And listen, I think everybody cares about the title. Everybody wants to have the bigger and better title. But I don't think they really respect what can come behind that. And then the other people that you have under your umbrella that you're responsible for. Like I feel so responsible for putting food on the people around me's table, right? Helping their families grow them. Like I think so much more about that when I go to sleep at night. It's just not me and my family anymore. I got 30 families under me, 40 families under me. How do I make the best decisions to keep their careers going? And each person's different. So there's just so much around it that I wish you could really lay out for people. But I think it's the experience you just got to get to truly understand that. Because I failed at my first management job and never thought I'd go back into it because of it.
I'll add one more thing that this other sales leader recently said. A lot of people that get promoted into leadership and sales leadership, many times they've worked alongside their colleagues, which were their friends. And now they are their boss technically, and they're more concerned about being liked. So they're not able to make the tough decisions. They're not able to have the tough conversations. Your job as a sales leader really is, number one, you have a fiduciary responsibility to the company, then the employees. I mean, part of it is the same, but really the company, because the company is what is keeping everyone afloat, which means your job is not to be liked, it's to get the job done, which will come with the territory of being very disliked, but you will be respected, which is very hard. People are like, oh yeah, that's fine. It's very hard to do when you've worked alongside somebody, or you have to be the bad guy. And that's the best thing for the company.
Man.
There's your first tip, Scott, for people. If you're not great at direct communication, you're going to struggle in leadership.
Yeah. And I really like what you guys have both touched on, which is sometimes when you're a rep, it's easy to think like, oh, I know what I would do if I was in charge and how I'd run this particular team or whatever. And it's easy to think like, I'm really good at closing deals. I'll be a great leader. And yet you don't factor in, okay, well, have you sat on 12 recruiting calls? Have you ever had to fire somebody? Have you ever had to like put somebody on a plan and like think through that? Have you had to build a comp structure? All these things are like, well, no, I guess I haven't really had to think about any of that stuff. These are all these skills that like, you're just not really in the day in, day out until you're in the seat. And you should be thinking about that as you're thinking about your career path. That's one bit of advice I give most of the people when I was doing more onboarding. I'd say, hey, look, you're coming in this role. You need to be thinking about, okay, I want to crush this role for the next year or whatever, but what is the route that I want? Is it leadership? And what does that mean? If I'm not ready to have direct conversations or to do these complex things or to be in these executive meetings, if that's not really what I want to do, I just want to kind of run a small team. Maybe I just want to be a field sales, a field sales rep and just make tons of money, right? Great. Or maybe I want to position into sales support, or maybe you want to position to a different part of the company, or maybe I want to create my own role. Whatever it is, right? Like you need to be thinking about that a year from now from the spot that you're in and really be thinking about what are those skills that make them different and then talk to those people. Something that I've learned in this concept around promotions is once you know what you want, and I think it's really important to both do the job that you want, but also to kind of make sure you're doing the job that you're hired for. It's not politicking, but visibility matters. One of the most important promotions I got in my career was when I was a seller and I was trying to move into enablement. And what I made an effort to do was say, okay, first and foremost, I'm hitting my number. Second, all the people who are going to be interfacing with that position that I want, I need to build a relationship with them. Because what's going to happen is they're going to have this conversation at some point, be like, well, should we promote Scott? And they're like, well, I don't really know Scott, but I know this person. I'm closer with this person. I don't know, right? I'm an unknown quantity to these other people who are kind of stakeholders in that decision. And so something that I've learned that's been helpful is whatever position you're trying to get to, you should really know the people connected to that position. And that doesn't mean you have to like do anything crazy, but I want to build a relationship with them. I want to understand what they do. I want to try and provide value to them so that eventually when you get to that point and you do want to press the conversation, all the parties in the room, that buying committee are like, oh yeah, Scott's a slam dunk. Oh yeah, I've worked with Cole in these other side projects. I see how they work. I see how they hustle. I've seen them in these micro environments. They could do this job, right? Because so much of it is, man, I don't know. I guess it's up to you. Like if they can't tip the scales in one way or the other, it becomes a little bit of a crapshoot. So do what you can to put the favor in your corner, to tip the scales. And that, to me, a lot of that starts with being visible to the people connected to the role that you want. Great insights. All right, now in the objection part of the episode, what we do is we take an idea that's related to the topic, which is promotions, and we disagree with maybe a popular notion or some modern convention around that. Cole, I want to start with you. What's something that you object to when it comes to promotions?
I think something I object to that comes with promotions is that they're expected. I think a lot of people think promotions are expected, and maybe it's intuitive to think that they're earned, but promotions are not expected. They are earned. I always look at a promotion or growth is that it's mine to lose. I went into every environment that I've been in is that this role is mine to take, and it's only on me to lose that opportunity. If I didn't get it, it wasn't anyone else's decision. It was because I didn't meet that mark. I didn't fulfill that duty to get there. So I think when I look at promotions, a lot of times there's this thought of it's somebody else's decision, but it's your role to go and take. It's my job to convince Zach why I'm the best fit for the next step, or to convince Chris, our CEO, for that next step. It's on me to determine my promotion, not somebody else.
Do you feel like, Cole, that if I'm hearing you right, there might be a rep who might be like, all right, well, if I'm in here long enough, I'll just naturally get the promotion because that's what happens after a year, right? And what I'm hearing you say is like, no, you'll sit in that seat for as long as you sit in that seat until you go out and essentially make the case for or push for the conversation and more importantly, earn the right to have the conversation around. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. I think it ties into Zach's first statement, right? You do the job before you get the job. I think a lot of times people think, I'm doing great at my role today. I'm meeting the mark every time, right? I show up, I'm on time, I hit my metrics. That's doing today's job, right? That's not doing the next job. That's not showing the initiative of what's to come. You're checking the boxes that are in front of you, right? And while that's great and it's needed and it's wanted, and that shows you're an excellent employee, that doesn't speak to a promotion, right? So when I think about promotions specifically, it's about proving that next step, proving growth, proving why you can handle more, get more, be a leader, whatever that is. That's for you to determine.
Yeah, more you do a lot of one-on-one sessions with reps. You're meeting with a rep and they're in this situation like, I feel like I should be promoted, but I feel like I'm getting passed by. What's kind of the advice you give to that kind of rep in that situation?
I mean, I have usually self-assess before giving them advice. So, why do they think they need to be promoted, and what would be reasons why they think they shouldn't be promoted? That's one
I
thing.
like that. I think sometimes they say like, oh, this, and this. It's like, okay, what about the reasons why not? Right?
Yeah.
How
I
introspective
think about it
can you
like a
be
deal.
here?
Like, why do you think this deal actually wouldn't close? What would cause this deal to derail? So what would cause your mission to get a promotion to not be accepted? Like, what would be some reasons? And they'll lay out some reasons, and that's probably the reasons. And if they're really truly being honest with themselves, like those are actually the reasons that's the gap that they need to fill.
Yeah.
Maybe they're only worrying about themselves. Maybe who knows, whatever it may be. And so like that is now those gaps become the action items for them to work on.
Yeah. Love that. All right. My objection here is this notion of you can figure out your promotion plan later, just like when you need it. And I object to that. I think that one thing that I've seen apparent is when you go out and you say, hey, we're going to hire, 5 more reps or whatever. If you're not also thinking, okay, well, where are they going to be in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years? You will run into a big problem. It is dangerous to kick that can down the road and just say like, yeah, we'll just figure it out later. I think one thing that I've been impressed with what Cole and Zach have done here is when we talk about the reps on the team, we say, okay, what about this person? Where are they going to end up? Do we envision them to just be on this track and bump them up and have them be a killer in the spot? Could we come up with a role that better suits their needs? If someone is slipping a little bit, maybe they're kind of in that top 80%, but not quite cream of the crop. Is this the right fit for them? And you're proactively thinking like, hey, they're going to be in this seat for a while. Let's start planting the seed for where we want them. We like them. We like the culture. We like what they contribute. They're doing the job. Where are they going to be? Right. And I think so often what happens is you kind of have these reps kind of strung along and like, hey, maybe eventually some AE spots will open up. If you guys can just hang tight, maybe, we'll close a few more deals and we can justify getting AEs. And I just think that is so volatile. You can have a couple big quarters, a couple down quarters, and all of a sudden, hey man, we thought we'd have 3 more AE spots open up, but they just didn't. Now you got people who are angry, who are unsatisfied, who they felt like they've been in the spot for too long, and they start looking elsewhere, right? Instead, if you are constructing that and communicating that promotion plan early and saying, hey, here's where you're at. I need you to stay the course here and be excellent at this. Where I want you is over here. That spot's not available yet, and potentially even over here. That's where I'm moving you toward. That's the direction I think we should head, and making sure that aligns with your goals. But those need to be early conversations. Those need to be what your leaders are talking about, not necessarily with the reps, but amongst each other. Like, how do we get everyone on this team in the spot that they're going to thrive in the most?
I think you also need to be having those conversations often with those people, right? The people I've seen most in my career and I've worked beside of, and they got promoted before me or after me, or they never got promoted. They never had the conversation regularly, right? People want to move up and they want to go this, but if they don't know that their leaders are talking about them to be in future positions, and be honest with them, hey, I don't know if this is, but I do envision with this, is this something you would like to fight for? Is this something you would like to get training around? I think the lack of conversation is a huge issue in a lot of organizations. They just kind of are like hoping, and then they're scared to death to ask about it because they don't want to ask for a promotion. So I think for leaders, you should be talking about it pretty regularly, of where you envision your people and where they envision themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And what do you do, Zach, when those things are not aligned? Maybe you have a rep who it's like, I want to be X. And you're like, listen, man, that's not in the cards.
I think this comes down to what Moore was talking about in the beginning of being a great communicator, right? Like, you need to be able to have direct conversation. Sometimes this company has either outgrown you or you've outgrown them. At my last company, when I told them that I got offered the VP of sales role here, the CRO of that company and my VP told me that they didn't have anything for me. It was time for me to go spread my wings. Like, they told me to go take the job, that they wish they could keep me, but it was my time. And I respect that so much because we are people and I do want you to treat me as such. Don't be selfish, right? Don't block me just because it furthers your, your career or whatever it may be. Like that normally comes back in tenfold. I believe it. Karma's a thing in my mind. And I don't think you should stop people from growing. So if you've outgrown them and you're like, listen, my goal is to get you here. It's maybe not in the next 6 to 12 months, but my goal is to get, and I want you here, right? You make us better, but I would never stop you from going to better yourself either. And I think just walking hand in hand with people and that's that true human level at that point. But you also can't sacrifice the company either. You gotta let them know that I'm gonna hold you accountable. Like we still got a number to deliver. We still got goals to attain, but I still want to help you get to where you want to go, whether that's here or somewhere else.
Yeah, I love what you say about having a direct conversation, because sometimes that's what it is. A rep says, but this is what I want. And a good leader will be like, listen, that's great that you want that. You're not ready for that. You may never be ready for that. That's not, like, in my experience, that's not the route for you. And either you can kind of be hurt about that, or you can take that coaching, take that feedback, and take that like, okay, well, what do I need then? Where do you see me, thriving? That's the productive conversation. When a rep is able to take that feedback and realign. And then in some cases, it's like, okay, well, maybe over here is a better route for me. Maybe taking a little bit longer, improving myself. Maybe that's the right call. Or in your case, in your example, Zach, maybe it is like, hey, I've reached the end of what I can do here, where I want to be. Maybe that is somewhere else. That's great. And you can talk about that and do it in a mature, normal way, right? It doesn't have
100%.
to be this like, what are you talking about? Yep. So much of that comes back down to communication.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I'll give you my objection then so we can get moving.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take us a little different direction with my objection. And it's being upfront that you do care about the title. Because so many people say they don't care about it. Like, just pay me what I'm worth. I don't care what you call me type mentality. And I disagree with that. I care about the title. I want the title. I've worked hard to get titles. A huge advocate is you should be truthful about what you want. Don't play it off, right? Like, I just, and maybe that is true. And if that is, be truthful about that. I do just care about the money, right? Or I do just care about X, Y, Z. But like for me and myself, like I care about the money and I care about the title. I've worked hard to get to where I am, right? And I'm going to keep working hard to get to where I'm going. So many people I've been surrounded by, when they say I don't care about the title. I'm like, but you do, right? And own that though, right? Yeah. I care about it because it means something to me. And things that mean stuff to people, they work hard for it and they work hard to keep it. So be proud of what you're running after and let that be known. Don't let me as a leader think that you don't care about getting the job. You don't care about the title that much, right? Tell me you're after it. How many people we interviewed that like, I want this job. I want that title. Like that speaks to my soul whenever you're that passionate about it.
Honesty and humility go a long way when you're just open about what you want and truthful about that. I think that carries a lot of weight in any situation, but specifically when it comes to situations like this. If I don't know where you want to be and you want to be promoted, how can I ever get you there? Right. So I think that open communication is absolutely right on, Zach. And
it speaks back to kind of what you talked about last episode about passion, Cole, right? What that does is it says, I care about this, right? Yep. Like I'm willing to put it all out there because this is something I want. If someone's like, hey, just like whatever, it would be cool. If not, like, it's up to you. It's like, okay, that doesn't always mean that's how they're going to come to the job, but it is potentially a leading indicator of how they're going to approach it. It's like, hey, I'll do kind of the bare minimum, whatever, like, or will you kind of take it in hey, this is a director role. This is a manager role. I'm going to treat it like such. I'm going to care for it like such. I'm going to care about it so that I'm not just another employee or whatever, right? I'm treating it like it does mean something. Love that. That's a good objection, Zach. I appreciate that one.
I just hear it so much, man, and it flies all over me every time. Like I'm just like, you do care, but that's a good thing. I've seen people quit jobs, lose jobs over losing a title or not getting one, and it's just like, just show the passion that you do care and you do want that, because the people around you wish they would give anything to be in your position. Show them what you did to get there, and then that you do care about it, and be truthful about that. I don't want anybody ever think that I don't care about where I'm at, because I do. And that makes me care about the people around me.
Yeah. 100%. More. What about you? What's an objection you have in the conversation of promotions or promoting?
I was thinking a lot about less of promotion, but if somebody were to get a job from a new company, but it's too deviated away from promotion. But I think if we're talking about promotions, I think just because somebody's getting a promotion, they can easily get blinded by, new position or higher position, more comp, and so they don't feel comfortable or confident to have certain items to negotiate. They're like, all right, I'm just going to take it or else I'll lose it. You should have non-negotiables before you accept the promotion. It's just like accepting a job, because either you accept it with your demands, whatever that may be, and if they're not met, then you make a big boy decision or big girl decision to just stay in your current company, current role, or decide to move to another company. So, for example, if someone's getting promoted to leadership and they feel like they may not have the exact chops and they want to if they're going to go to that type of role with more responsibility, then maybe get a mentor, and they'd want the company to stipend that. I think everybody should do that. Like, one of the mistakes I made in the past was when I did get promoted to VP, I assumed, like, all right, because I got promoted to VP, the expectation of me is that I need to know all the answers and I should know what to do. When a lot of times I didn't know what to do. It was just on the fly and I was running with anxiety. I should have said, hey, I need a coach. I need you guys to stipend this. For me to move forward to this new position, here's what I feel like I need to be successful. And then flip it back to them and asking the person that's promoting you, what do you feel like I need to do to be successful in this role? So it comes down to, if you're going to get promoted, my objection is, or the objection is, don't just accept it just because it's a promotion. Have your non-negotiables. Be willing to walk away from that promotion.
Yeah, I think that's a good lesson that applies again back to in the deal part of it, right? Sometimes someone's like, all right, I'll sign. And you're like, okay, great. And you'll just kind of take any deal because they're willing to sign. And all of a sudden you're giving out free months and you're
Never happens in sales, Scott.
That never happens.
Sales is life, right? We use it every time. We use it in interviews and promotions and getting out of a parking ticket from a cop. That's sales.
And I think what you said there more is really spot on. It speaks to kind of what I think Cole and Zach have been talking about with passion and saying what you mean, which is like, hey, I want to do this. I'm stepping into a role where, I haven't been managing a team and I haven't been making these kinds of decisions. You're willing to take a risk on me. I think that's great. And I appreciate the compensation and the title bump there. I want those things. But in order for me to be successful at this, it's not just giving me the keys to the car, right? Like what else is going to contribute to my success? And sometimes that's training resources. Sometimes that's freedom to, hey, you know what? I have a skill set in these particular tools. I would love, coming into this, the ability to buy some tools or to access some resources in order to do my job effectively, or to use a consult, whatever it might be, right? You should be thinking about that going into the role, like what will make me the difference maker? And what can I bring to the negotiation table? And it doesn't have to be like, well, I got to have a parking spot in a Lambo or whatever. Like it can be the sales conversation, right? Of like, this is what I need to be successful. You want a successful leader and you see that potential in me. This is what I think will get me to 100%.
I want to circle back because you were about to say something at the beginning of your objection, and now genuinely curious, even if it deviates us a little bit, you were talking about somebody joining an org, right? Eventually that leads to promotional conversations. So I'm curious what your first thought was going to be.
The first thought was, they say they're starting in a company in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is, and then they only start doing the job when they join the company. There's so much delay. If it's official, I'm starting a company in 2-3 weeks, even a month, I'm going to start working now. I don't think many people think that way. 'Cause for them, they're coasting. They're in this like no man's land. I don't owe anybody anything. I'm leaving this company. I gave them 2 weeks notice. I have my time, vacation. And they don't do any work, and they start, and everything's delayed. I think that's a big problem. I'm very anti that. And then people argue like, oh, that's hustle culture. Yeah, I believe when you need to go from 0 to 10, you need to have hustle culture. You need to grind it out. It has to happen. I know somebody, a competitor of mine, but he's also a friend. We spoke the other day, and he says to me, yeah, I'm like, in the business, I'm working on the business, and I need to get here and here and here. And he's like, yeah, but I have to stop working at 5:30. He's like, it's very important. I need to stop. I don't take calls after 5:30. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, good luck. Good for me. I wake up at 5 a.m. I work sometimes till 1 a.m. And sometimes if I feel like I'm burnt out, fine, I'll take the day off, or I'll end at 4 or 5. But otherwise, I'm all in. And I think people want the best of both worlds. And there's always a trade-off in life, always. You want to have a lifestyle type of role, you're going to give up something. You want to have an amazing position, amazing success, you're going to sacrifice something early on. There's always a trade-off in life.
It's something we talk about pretty regular here. And that makes me think of two things we talk about pretty regularly is One, that I personally don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in life. Like you got to do it all at the same time. And whether that is you answering calls at 8:30 at night or needing to go take your son to the doctor at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? All things are happening at all times. And people that want to say that they're just off at 5 o'clock, good luck. Like you just said, that doesn't work that way. And the second thing I think we talk about more often than anything else is at the end of the day, I don't want people who have employee mentalities. I want owner mentalities. Owner mentalities, you do what it takes to get the job done. And what you just said about starting before you start a job, 2 to 3 weeks, owner mentality says, I'm going to get ahead, right? I got to get this done. Because if it was your baby, it wouldn't matter if you're getting paid or not. You got to get the job done. And employee mentality is not till I clock in and I'm done when I clock out, right?
Well, to tie this back into promotions, right? There are lots of jobs in the world where it's like, if that's what you want, an employee type job where I clock out and I leave. And I've known people like this. They're like, yeah, I'm a second income in my house and I just want something that I can come in, work, and then leave, and I leave it all there. Great. There are thousands of jobs like that. And if that's what you want, great. If you're like, no, but I want to get promoted, it's like, all right, well, this is different. Like, if you want the title, if you want the bump, if you want the responsibility, you kind of need to ask yourself, like, is that the kind of lifestyle that I want? Do I want to be always on? Do I want to take my phone on vacation or whatever? There are privileges there, right? This opens up new opportunities. That grind, that hustle and grind, all concentrated. Sure, that can help you pay off your house really quickly, retire early, whatever, right? Maybe that's the path you want to go. But yeah, you can't have it both ways. You really have to decide, like, okay, if I'm going to get promoted, if I'm going to go down this track, what am I willing to sacrifice? What can I bring to the table, right? To say, like, hey, in order for me to live this part of lifestyle or this type of job, this is how we're able to work, right? That's something I think Zach does a good job with his, his leadership team. I can only speak personally where it's like, hey, you need to go to the gym, you need to do whatever, like, do what you got to do. But like, when I need you, right? And Zach will send me a message on LinkedIn at 12 and 9, like, hey, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, great, let's think. Yeah, I'm thinking about it too, like, and it's like, that's, I'm fine with that because at 1:30, it's like, hey, I'm going to the gym. Zach doesn't need me right now. Like, I need to go make breakfast for my kids or whatever. Like, that's the relationship we've established. And as long as we're maintaining that standard, great.
Why you gotta call me out, Scott? Dang. I do that crap to Cole too.
No, it's good though.
But I think it sets the stage perfectly for a promotion. If somebody's doing the job 2 to 3 weeks before they start, talk about a mindset. Like, that's anybody you would want alongside of you leading and growing and scaling. So I think it's a perfect, if you're listening to one tip, do that one.
100%.
Yeah. But before we wrap up, I want to do a quick cross-examination. Since we have a guest here, more obviously you have a breadth of expertise in training and up-leveling sellers. We're on the topic of promotions. I wanted to give myself, Cole, and Zach an opportunity to ask you just kind of a specific question around promoting, something that we've been kind of noodling on. Hopefully this is a question that maybe some of our listeners might be thinking about, but would love just your perspective on it as somebody who, again, is in seat with a lot of sellers or in with a lot of sales leaders. And these conversations probably come up more often than with somebody who's less familiar. Cole, let's start with you. What's the question for more?
Yeah, absolutely. So more, you work with a lot of individuals and growth oriented, right? They're looking to scale something about themselves, whether it's their contributions or to get to the next step, just to be better in seat. Where do you start with that? What is the first thing you guys look at when you're looking to be better at what you're doing?
If the person, like, in other words, the people that I communicate with, the salespeople, whatever it is, like, what am I looking for first?
Yeah. What are you looking for first? I come to you and I say, hey, I'm looking to be better in my role. I'm looking to get promoted. I'm looking to get that next step. Where do we start?
I mean, a lot of places. One of the places that we start, it's like, there's a couple of things. I think it's making a decision and then committing. There's like two things. I think I picked it up from, like, some people will hate me for this, Grant Cardone, but he talks about committing and going all in 10x, whatever it is. But there's some stuff that he says that's a lot of wisdom. But number one, you have to make a decision, be completely decisive on, yes, you want to do it versus it sounds like you like the idea of it. So first you have to make a decision, then you have to commit. So if you make a decision, I want to get better. Cool. Are you committed? What does that mean? If somebody, I'll give you an example. somebody wants to lose weight, are they waking up and making sacrifices and waking up early to go to the gym? That's a commit element. Saying I want to lose weight is a decision, but then you have to commit for it to actually be true. What they do when they're not working is an important piece. So if someone comes to me like, I want to get better or whatever it is, like, all right, what do you do when you're not working? When you clock out? Are you just sitting down watching football? Or are you maybe like reading self-help books, listening to podcasts? Like, what do you do on your off time? That I usually ask that question also when I interview reps. What do you do when you're not working? If they just say like, I like to watch basketball or football, whatever it is, like that's cool, but like it also tells me you're not really growth oriented. If someone says, oh, I have, I like to do woodwork, or I like to, I'm in a league, or I like to read books, or I'm building a house, whatever it is, something that there is progress, that's a really good sign that they're on the right track. Where do I start? I usually get them to self-assess first, and I give them like a homework assignment. And when we meet again, do they complete the homework assignment or not? I'll give you an example. I'm coaching a seller right now. He put his money where his mouth is. He invested in himself. He showed up. He did the work. He showed up, and then we came up with action items for him to work on. We met a month later to see how he progressed. What was the progress with those action items? Like, oh yeah, I didn't get to do that. I need to do that. That's not a good sign. So I'm going to give you a little homework assignment. Can you do the bare minimum? That's a big one. Another one is I speak to a lot of people that book a discovery call on my calendar, like, yeah, I want to get better, all these things. And then I'm like, all right, well, we go through the plan. Then I tell them, here's what it costs to enroll. I don't know. If they're not willing to get uncomfortable, and usually it's most uncomfortable when you have to take out your credit card. If they're not willing to put skin in the game, then they're not committed. So I try to find a way for them to put skin in the game. Maybe I should have started with that instead.
Skin in the game. Now,
Circle.
That's good. I have a question more. It's in a similar vein, but I want to take it a little bit further in the process. Let's say you're on, we're deciding to promote an AE. We've got two great candidates, and me, you, Cole, and Zach. We're really torn between them. They're both great in a lot of aspects. What tends to be the X factor that might tip it over one rep over another that you've seen? Like people who tend to do this, all things otherwise being equal, like this ends up getting people those promotions as people who do X or operate X. Like what do you find to be that X factor in that situation?
Two things that really stand out, because it just happened recently with another client of mine. One, they're better critical thinkers, so they don't need to be told what to do. They can kind of think on their own and come up. That's so critical thinking, but part of that leads to when they present a problem, they always present a solution. They're never coming in with a problem and relying on me for the solution. That's a big piece. And then they proactively reach out and they want like feedback. They're seeking feedback. They're open to constructive feedback. If the other one comes from time to time, it's a problem. I always think about like one-on-ones, and I told this to the A's at Rankings, for example. I'm like, the one-on-ones that we have scheduled, they're not for me, they're for you. Like, I serve you. So you as the AE need to come prepared for these one-on-ones with what you need help with. If they show up to the one-on-ones, they're like, all right, More, what do you want to talk about? That's a problem. And usually the ones that come prepared and like know exactly what they want to talk about, they're like, they have a mission. All right, cool, I need help with this, and I'm going to leave. Those ones do really well. Those ones can actually become entrepreneurs because they have a goal, they have a task, action item, they work backwards, they execute, they come back, and then they iterate. And the ones that just show up and are like, all right, I have my one-on-one with you, so I have to show up, and you tell me what I need to do, that's a problem.
Love it.
Yeah. So, Scott, you took part of mine that I was going to ask. So we're going to take this a little different direction. So you've been super successful, right? Multiple VP. You've been promoted many times. You even promoted yourself to owning your own company, right? Which is good news. And it's uber successful. You have, I think, 40,000 followers on LinkedIn, I believe, or around that, doing amazing things. If you could go back, what would you tell yourself when you started through all your experience? Like, if you could tell everybody, this isn't something that you're born with, this isn't something that has to be earned day in, day out. Like, what is a simple thing that you would go back and tell yourself to be at the spot you are now, or tell somebody how to get there?
That's a good question. Let me think about that. It wouldn't be one thing, it would be a bunch of things. 3 things that I'm doing now that I should have done a long time ago. One is focus. When I started my business, I was looking a lot. There's a picture of Michael Phelps swimming I think it was in the Olympics. And then his competition was swimming right next to him, but the competition was looking at Michael Phelps. And they say winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. And so I prior to this like new ethos, whatever it was, I would lose folks by looking at my competitors too much, looking at their improvement, not looking too much externally, not internally. Shiny object syndrome. So one thing that I started doing was I created a running list of tasks that whenever an idea came into mind, like, oh, that's a great idea, I really want to do that, I just dump it in the task and like stay the course. So focus on one thing at a time. And like, for example, I, for a long time, wanted to build out my little community, but I was doing a little bit of this. I was doing webinars all over the place. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do my community and that's it. I focus on one problem, one task, one action item, one persona, one thing, one, until that becomes a process that you can build a process for, then you can move on. So that focus is one. The other one is unwavering belief. That's like a word that I have for the year. When I say unwavering belief, I'm talking about like almost like narcissistic self-belief in yourself, where when you tell people your vision and your goals, they think you're crazy, but you don't. You think it's totally achievable. Part of that has to do with brainwashing yourself through morning visualizations, which I do. I read my vision out loud and I close my eyes and I envision myself being very successful, which leads me to like part 2.5, which is we think for us to get to the 2.0 version of ourselves, we first need to make money. We first need to get a promotion. We first need to get here or there, or make X amount of money so that we can buy the car, or X amount of money so that we can, have a family, whatever it may be. Time is an illusion. So the version of you in the future is the same version of you as yourself right now today. So just instead of saying, first I need to do A, B, C to get to the next version of myself, just be that version of yourself. What does Cole, Zach, and Scott, how do they think? How do they behave? How do they feel if they were the best versions of themselves? So write it down on a journal and then start acting that way. Almost like getting into character. If you look at like Heath Ledger, when he did the role for Joker in The Dark Knight, you totally forgot he was Heath Ledger. He got into character. That's what really good actors do. They don't act. They just become the character by studying the character, embodying the character. That's a big thing that I do now that's completely changed my life. And then systems. That's a third one that I follow. I'm trying to build a system for everything. So whether it's a sales framework, whether it's how do I manage my LinkedIn, there's a system that I've started creating for and I documented in Notion. Call it a little mini playbook for different things. And when you build a system like that, then you can maybe hire a VA or hire an employee and give them the system. So those 3 things. So it's focus, unwavering belief, and then systems. 3 things.
Awesome. Great.
Deep wisdom there. More. I love all that.
There were
man.
so many nuggets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
That'll generate like 5 or 6 shorts and TikToks for us for a while. So we appreciate that.
You bet.
Cool. Well, let's wrap up the episode here. In the last section, really just closing arguments. It's just kind of one little tidbit that you'd like to pass on to our listeners. Could be something that you've already said, something that just has come to you during this episode that you just kind of want to impart. Something simple, pithy, could be on a bumper sticker. Ideally, we'll spin up a little bumper sticker business. But yeah, like what's one bit of advice or wisdom or just one point you want to leave to the listeners? Let's start with you, Zach. What's something you want to close with here?
Yeah, I think there's been so many great things said on this. What I would say, and I think early on, I really tried to lean into this, was become great at the little things, right? You don't have to stand out. Quite frankly, if you show up early, if you reply to your emails, answer your Slacks, like you stand out. Become great at the easy things and average at the hard, and you'll be a rock star. You'll find the promotions will find you. You will get better. Be consistent. I think those few things people miss the boat on so often is just being great at the easy, because people think because it's easy, it just happens, and it doesn't. Be focused on it, be consistent at it, and a lot of good things will come.
Really love that. Cole, what about you?
Yeah, I think this ties into Moore's visualization. Think about yourself in the future. When I think about you want that next step, it's yours to lose. Go on it. Do it. Do what it takes. Go the extra mile. It will be seen. You will be noticed. It will be appreciated. If you want that next step, it's yours to lose. Go take it.
Love that. Mine would be tip the scales in your favor, right? Whether you're looking for a job or looking at a promotion, you're going to be always going up against stiff competition, right? It's very rarely just like a one and done. Identify what would tip it in your favor. Is that building relationships? Is that going the extra mile? Is that coming in early? Is that building a reputation for yourself? Is that having, communicating what you want, right? There are all these little things that by themselves, maybe it's a small pebble, but in sum can really tip the scales in your favor. Identify those things and do those things, and it will be an easy decision for the people deciding, who gets promoted and if that's going to be you. More, what about you? We'll close us out here.
Yeah, it'd probably be similar to what you just said. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. It's my favorite quote. If just hearing the quote, you know what that means, right? It's putting in the work. Do the job before you get the job, and when the time comes, it works. The quote just speaks for itself.
Yeah, it's such a good quote.
I don't even need to explain it. It doesn't do it justice.
That is peak quote. Yeah, I love that. More, I mean, you obviously you run a business. I want to give you an opportunity to make sure people know how to connect with you. What's the best way to learn more about you and your company and what you do?
Yeah, I mean, best way is to find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at demo2close. But if you want to get a sense of my style, content, whatever it may be, advice, free source resources, then LinkedIn. I'm redoing my website now, so I'm not even going to direct people to my website.
Yeah. I mean, and what better way to just get a nice flavor of more than listen to this podcast, right? I mean, I feel like lots of great insights here. It's been a good episode, gentlemen. I think the case has been settled here on promotions, at least for now. Maybe we'll bring it to the court later. If you, for the Under Oath listeners, give us a rating on Apple, on Spotify. If you watched on YouTube, great. Or I think you can watch it on Spotify as well. Love a comment. If you have a topic or something that you're working through in your sales organization, whether you're a contributor or manager or leadership or whatever, that you'd love kind of at least our perspective on, we'd love to hear from you. So reach out to us. It's all in the show notes there. But I think that's going to do it.
Cool.
This court session is closed.
But a sail built on trust, oh, that's the flair. Honesty sells, beware the snare. Under oath, you gotta keep it true. Win their hearts with what you do. Not just the close, but the journey too.